People have a lot of explanations for why drawing is hard, and a lot of people are tempted to explain it away with magic. Magic like talent or being gifted. In truth, the people who subscribe to those ideas fall into three categories. Those who don't yet know how to draw and are therefore attempting to find an answer within the boundaries of the other things they have experienced. Those who've been at it for so long that they genuinely cannot imagine a world where they could not draw. And those who, for one reason or another, enjoy the exclusivity that comes from being regarded as some kind of magical creature with superpowers. There is, however, a pretty straightforward explanation to the question of why drawing is hard. Drawing is hard because most of the things we want to draw, regardless of how it is we choose to stylize them, are three-dimensional. People exist in 3D. Your dog exists in 3D. The whole world from which we pull all of the things we represent in our drawings start out 3D. We may, through stylistic choices, flatten them out, but in order to understand them, we must first understand 3D space. We ourselves happen to live in that 3D world too, so surely we must understand it well enough. If someone throws a ball at you unexpectedly, there's a good chance that your subconscious is in a split second going to do the math to figure out where that ball will be by the time you can raise your hand to catch it, or at least knock it away. So, we are undoubtedly masters of the space in which we exist. But you're forgetting one thing. We don't draw in 3 dimensions. We draw on a flat piece of paper or on a flat canvas, and thus, as a matter of physical fact, we only draw in 2 dimensions. It falls to us, and the way we draw our marks or craft our forms, to actually take that 2-dimensional surface and create the illusion of depth. By this point, all of this should be familiar. After all, we've talked about how perspective projection is itself a tool to do just that, to convey a sense of depth on a flat page and fool the viewer into believing that despite looking at a flat page, it's really a whole world that they could very well fall into if they're not careful. That's what we're doing, right? Using tips and tricks to fool those idiots and rubes into believing something that isn't real? Surely it's all a big scam, a grand conspiracy. Obviously not, but here's the thing. That's probably what you subconsciously believe at this moment, and it's certainly how I thought about it for the first decade or so, during which I didn't really attempt to learn any of the fundamentals of drawing, but rather just drew what I felt like or stared hopelessly at a blank piece of paper, hoping something cool would manifest on its own. It never did. In effect, we turn drawing into the process of telling a lie. We understand that what we're drawing is just a series of marks on a flat page, and we have to constantly work against that understanding, against the very facts of life, in order to convince our audience of something entirely different. It's simply not an efficient use of resources if when we're drawing we're continuously distracted from what it is we actually want to depict, by all of those concerns over how we're going to go about drawing it. All of the rules, what is to converge with what, whether everything is correct or not. In my experience, this generally resulted in work that wasn't interesting, not even to me, the one who produced it. Conversely, there were times I allowed myself to just draw, without being concerned with whether or not I was doing things correctly. That's something one can actually do and choose to do, although it's not an easy thing to switch off in one's mind, as you likely well know, having been adhering to the 50% rule from Lesson 0. In those instances, the results didn't look remotely correct, but they were a hell of a lot more interesting to my own eyes. When you tell a lie, like eating from a can of Pringles, you can rarely stop at just one. To cover your tracks, to deal with the evidence pointing out your deceit, you tell more lies, until it spirals into an uncontrollable web so complex you can no longer maintain a consistent narrative to your falsehood. A drawing is, by its very nature, orders of magnitude more complex than the wildest web of lies you've ever told, and worse still, the viewer knows you're lying to them. They give us the smallest thread, their suspension of disbelief, or willingness to believe you despite the fact that you're full of it. But as your inconsistencies and mistakes build up, that thread gets closer and closer to snapping. If you have to rely on your conscious mind to maintain the charade, then it is inevitable. The thread will snap, and the viewer will no longer be able to suspend their disbelief. There is another way, but be warned. This way lies madness. Quite literally. The best way to tell a lie and maintain a consistent narrative, the best way to avoid tripping over the falsehoods, is to genuinely believe in them yourself, at least to the degree that you expect of the viewer. But what do we call it when a person genuinely believes something that isn't true? Insanity. On this flat piece of paper, we've got a circle. But is it a circle? That depends on how we ourselves, the one drawing on the page, think about it. If asked to draw a line across it, you might draw a simple straight line like this, because you understand it as a flat circle on a flat page. But me, I'm crazy. I see this circle and I know it's a sphere. I know it exists in three-dimensional space, and I know that this frame around it is a window through which I can see that whole other world. When I draw a line across it, I have no choice but to have that line curve along the surface of the sphere, wrapping around it in 3D space. One might think of this as taking something flat and making it 3D, but that's not right. It was never not three-dimensional, but by adding this line, I was able to show you what I see. This type of line, which wraps along the surface of a 3D form, is known as a contour line. It's a very useful tool, both for learning to reinforce that belief that what we're drawing is three-dimensional, but also in subtler ways to reinforce the viewer's suspension of disbelief. In this lesson, we'll be looking at some pretty obvious and concrete uses of this tool for the first purpose, meaning drawing these kinds of complete curves and wrapping them around our forms. But basically, any line that follows the surface of a form is a contour line. Like how on this furry sphere, I use the direction and flow of these marks to both convey some of its furry texture, but also to reinforce the sense of volume. Contour lines are little hints we can give the viewer, but like any tool, it's all about how you choose to use them. Every little contour line can serve to reinforce or undermine that illusion of form and dimension. As shown before, if you take a sphere and draw a straight line across it on the page, that sphere will instantly be read as being flat. These are a great example of the lies we tell, and how any one of them, if handled incorrectly, can undermine the illusion we're trying to create. That's not to make you panic, although honestly it does sound kind of terrifying. It's just to make the point that memorizing everything you have to know and understanding all of the theory behind the rules on a conscious level is what many students desperately want, but it's not a reasonable thing to expect of yourself. It's just not how humans work. What we do in this course to overcome it, well, okay. In all fairness, I do ask and expect students to be hyper-conscious of every little action they take, every choice they make, down to ensuring they're using the ghosting method for every single mark they freehand. But we do this here so that when you're actually drawing your own stuff, all of that understanding sinks down into your subconscious, where you can leverage it instinctually. The goal is for you to be able to think about what it is you want to draw, rather than how. When we avoid this and try to use our instincts for our work here in this course, we run into the problem of using our instincts to train our instincts, and the result is generally a big mess. Fortunately, we can keep all of the hyper-intentional decision-making for the work you do here with us, and perhaps in other courses that demand the same, so that outside of our dark, dank, box-obsessed prison, you can be free to draw as you please and just kind of have things fall into place. So, as we've established, a contour line can help us to understand how a surface can exist in 3 dimensions and how it doesn't simply align with the page that you're drawing on, but can push in and out of the depth of that scene. This concept, the idea of a line wrapping around a surface to describe how it exists in space, can actually be taken further. Just as a line can describe the surface of this sphere, we can similarly take the objects we place in the world and use them to describe the very space they occupy. This is a bit of a leap, so bear with me. If a contour line describes how a surface deforms through all three dimensions, how can we leverage the same concept to describe the space in which the whole scene exists? First, think of the scene, that is, the world in which you're drawing, as though it's a room with boundaries. This room can be quite small, like your bedroom, or it can be a room so big that it can contain mountains and oceans. Its walls are simply the boundaries we can use to define the space, to understand it. Our brains don't play too well with the concept of infinity, as you've probably encountered already in this course. So boundaries can help take the infinite and focus on the parts that actually matter to us. Just like the sphere we were looking at earlier, we now have surfaces that we could ostensibly describe. If I drew an arrow running parallel to these three vertical walls of our scene, seeing how it pushes back into space, showing how it converges and compresses its width, and how it does the reverse as it comes back towards the viewer, helps to convey the depth of the space as a whole. But we aren't limited to following those surfaces. As you can see here, this arrow doesn't rest right on those walls, but rather it floats a small distance away. We can actually draw a wide variety of arrows within this space, arrows that travel through those three dimensions and convey that sense of depth. The arrow is a surface of its own, and by existing within the scene, it can tell us more about it. We could achieve this by adding other forms within the scene, like piling boxes in places. But arrows are nice, because they don't only represent a static object, but rather demonstrate the potential for movement through that space. As you'll see shortly, arrows are going to be a particular focus for our exercises for this very reason. As many of you know, Drawabox is a completely free resource that delivers a ton of value on a very limited budget. While one of the major ways students support our efforts is by signing up to our Patreon and allowing some of their official critique credits to expire, checking out the courses, tools, and books listed on our recommendations page is also an excellent way to help us out. When a student uses one of our links to Amazon in Canada and the United States, or Proco.com, and makes a purchase, we get paid a commission that helps us out considerably. So, if you're interested in checking out other courses and books, our curated recommendations are a great place to start. The link will be in the description below.